Mirjana Arlaud, hopefully I've got the pronunciation of your name correct, is the founder and CEO of Future by Design, a creative agency on a mission to drive change through design and communication. After nearly a decade of impactful work with the United Nations, Mirjana launched Future by Design to merge her passion for sustainability and creativity. Her agency is dedicated to helping organizations with very bold ideas amplify their voices and create a positive, measurable impact in the world. Under her leadership, Future by Design has become a go-to partner for sustainability-focused brands known for their innovative storytelling and commitment to building a better future. Welcome, Mirjana.
Thank you so much.
And we're very excited to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. As I said when we opened the call, I feel like meeting two celebrities, so it's very nice of you to have me with you today.
Now we've got that on record.
We've got it on record, yes. So thank you for following our instruction. And cool. So let's dive in. How does your agency go beyond traditional marketing to create sustainability narratives that educate and inspire action? Because sustainability has become a bit of a buzzword. It's become a trend word, and a lot of people I don't think actually know what sustainability actually means, or at least what it means in a marketing perspective. So could you maybe dive in and educate us as to what it's all about?
Sure. Thank you so much. Well, as you said in the introduction, I actually worked for almost a decade in the United Nations, and I've seen firsthand how we talked about sustainable development before it actually became a mainstream topic. So many, many years ago. And I've seen on a global level that so many individuals and organizations and companies were doing and having a great social and environmental impact, but perhaps that was not communicated to the wider audience at the level that I just felt it would be great and that would further help them to fundraise maybe further for their own work, etc. So with all of that knowledge and seeing what was happening, I just felt that it would be really great to have my own team and to build a global network of collaborators, partners, whether freelancers or agencies, etc., who would work with us. And I'm very, very proud that since 2018, Future by Design has been successful in building really great relationship with different organizations and brands to communicate how they focus on sustainable development. And we go beyond traditional marketing because for us, we are not a typical creative agency where you would go to us, we would create a campaign to increase your sales. Basically, we go for more creating campaigns and narratives that change people's behaviors, which is very, very complex and hard to work on. And sometimes it even takes like many years in the making to actually have an impact. And while we do try to focus on having very quantifiable like return on investment in terms of what people got from the campaigns or the work that we worked on, a lot of the times it's also quantitative. And so that's something that really internally at Future by Design, we discussed many times is sometimes it's really like raising visibility, what different organizations are working on. And we really work on so many different topics. Future by Design is the lead creative agency to the world's largest climate fund in the world, which is called the Green Climate Fund. And so together with them, we help them develop a campaign and branding and a lot of different human-centered stories, etc., over the course of 18 months. And through that campaign, they basically raised around $14 billion to support developing countries to fight climate action. But at the same time, we work with really smaller organizations, and sometimes we work on pro bono basis to help them work on inclusive education for children, maybe who live with disability. We work with organizations focusing on gender-based violence. So the variety of topics that are all linked to sustainable development. And as you said, I believe that currently sustainability might be considered as something overused and kind of mainstream, but we never engage on talking about sustainability as kind of for the sake of talking about it. We just don't see it as the end goal. For us, it's the way of thinking and the way of creating a different world that is just better, like and thriving for not just us, but the next generation. So it's just kind of the way of thinking for us.
I actually have a follow-up question because, again, sustainability has become a bit of a buzz and trend word, etc. And it's led to something that organizations do now called greenwashing.
Yes.
And this is a massive issue. And I think that it really kind of murkies the water. So could you maybe just kind of outline exactly what greenwashing is and how it differs from, actual sustainability initiatives?
Sure. But I mean, quite recently, we had a very nice meeting here in Paris of the initiative called the Clean Creatives. And these are all the individuals, freelancers, and agencies who are committed not to work with fossil fuels. And for example, I had a talk with some product designers, and they were saying they work for a very large international creative agency, not to name anyone, but they were saying they were asked to develop a product or a campaign around the product that is supposed to be more environmentally friendly. But they knew that at the very basis of it, like it wasn't really making a dent in terms of being more environmentally friendly. There were just like some features that were being presented in the campaign. So that's basically greenwashing, or working with a fossil fuel company that has a very small program opening on renewable energies and focusing how this entire company is now becoming more sustainable, whereas they still have the bulk of the business that is linked to fossil fuel, for example, production. So there's just some of the examples how much the greenwashing has been present. And I think the current situation in the world with geopolitics and the rising cost of living and everything is pushing perhaps the industry and some of the agencies to still say yes to many of these projects, simply because they need to make a living, they need to sustain their businesses. But I believe that from our side as Future by Design, we're in a position that we're kind of doubling down on sustainability and more believing that while we work on something, we carefully select that it's actually having a meaningful impact.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I just jump in and ask a little bit more about Clean Creatives?
Sure.
So can you just give us a quick 101? What is that all about? Who should join? Why should people join? And what does it actually mean to be a clean creative?
Sure, I'm sure they'll be very happy that we mentioned them. It started off in the US, and they had this meetup for the first time in Paris recently, a few weeks ago. And it's an initiative, it's a global initiative of like-minded freelancers and creative agencies who are committed to signing a pledge where they commit not to work with the fossil fuel industry. They believe that especially with millennials now being kind of in the driver's seat and the generations that are coming into the market and being more like all the young professionals who are coming into the market, that they feel that the fossil fuel industry is not something they want to work with or who they want to work with. So it's basically an international pledge that one can sign and just kind of to communicate to the world if they are already creative, new narratives and campaigns and projects, etc. It will be with an aim of really making a difference and committing to climate action and contributing to solving the climate crisis. So it's actually very easy to find them. They have a website and they're quite vocal on LinkedIn as well, on different social medias. And I believe that in some of the countries like the UK, they even created they're called the nice list, the list of all of the organizations and individuals who signed the pledge. So if a brand or a company or organization would actually like to know which creative agency is truly committed to these goals and these values, they can simply look at the list and select one from that list. So if any of the freelancers who are listening to your podcast would be excited to kind of voice their commitment to sustainability, this is one of the pledges they could sign, and it's kind of a clear badge in terms of their beliefs and values.
Awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah. Putting it back to Future by Design, could you share an example of a campaign where your approach has made a significant impact? I mean, you've spoken about qualitative and quantitative return on investment. You've mentioned something which I would obviously kind of link to behavioral science, like a very behavioral science approach. You're trying to change people's behavior. So, I mean, that's a whole different kettle of fish. So maybe have you got a campaign that you're able to share with us to kind of demonstrate what you do?
Sure. Well, maybe I can share one of the most recent campaigns we worked on together with FSC. It's the Forest Stewardship Council. If you're into sustainable forestry, any of the packaging that is made from materials coming from sustainable forests, etc., or any of the books, you will see the little check tree mark, and that's basically the FSC. So we're also their lead creative agency, and we worked on the sustainable fashion campaign recently together with them. And that was particularly interesting because it was focusing on targeting millennials and Generation Z. And as you know, especially the Generation Z is known as a group with a particular passion for their activism, for social justice, for environmental issues. And since they really value authenticity and ethical brands, and they have the sense of responsibility, we felt that it would be great to develop a global social media campaign. And the FSC branches in different regions and national level could use those templates and interpret in their own way. So it was translated in more than 20 languages, and we've seen quite an uptake globally. And if we're looking at the success of the campaign, the website of the FSC, particularly that talks about sustainable fashion and circularity, had 100 times more visits than usually. So that was quite an outreach, and we were very happy about that. And now we're continuing with the next phases of communicating around sustainable fashion and circularity. So that was very, very nice, and very, very nice results out of that rollout. But when we talk about behavioral change, it's I would like to mention a campaign we did together with Nathan Ebanks Foundation from Jamaica. It was actually a pro bono project at Future by Design. We commit every year to select specific individuals, organizations who might not have the resources to help them communicate about their work. And one of those projects was a few years ago, Nathan Ebanks Foundation. And it was set up by a mother, Christine, who is one of the most wonderful people I've ever met. And her son was born with cerebral palsy. And she realized while he was going to kindergarten, he was coming back home sad, and that he might not have been accepted not only by some of the children in his class, but also the teacher herself might not have had the approach that was expected from her to enable him just to participate better in the group activities, etc. So what his mother did, she brought together all of these different photos and showed an album where he was born, what type of colors he likes, where he lives, like who's his family, etc. And that help other children and the teachers as well in that kindergarten understand that he's the same, but in a way still different, and really help Nathan better integrate in his class and overall group. And what we've done from Future by Design side, we illustrated the book. So we illustrated the book, and it's being sold on Amazon, and it provides a very, very small passive income to the foundation. But from the kind of behavioral change side, we've seen that now it can be found across different classrooms in the Caribbean and in the United States. And for us, it was like kind of a small contribution towards a more inclusive education, specifically for children aged from 4 to 6. And I think an interesting part of that project also crossed my mind that links to freelancers was that we actually collaborated with someone on that project at the beginning, and we asked to illustrate basically how Nathan was at home, in school, etc. And this person simply did not have an understanding of what it means being a person living with disability or a child living with disability. And the illustrations were only showing that. And then we've seen like that was not the way to go. And we decided to work with our own illustrator, who's an award-winning illustrator. But we wanted to kind of explore different styles. And that's where we've seen how important it is that people we collaborate with really have a good understanding of what it means to be inclusive also in terms of the design.
Yeah. Just picking up on that thread, obviously, now speaking about freelancers, Shay and I have both had projects where you kind of take the project on because you need the money, but you have got zero like intrinsic investment in that thing. And that's unfortunately just the nature of freelancing. Sometimes you take on projects that you're not kind of really invested in from a passion project perspective, or from your own interest. What specific qualities and skills do you look for in freelancers, especially when it comes to like a genuine passion for sustainability? Is that super important to you? Are you looking for people that, they've got that little tick from team creatives that they dedicated to, not working with specific industries, and they have got a passion for sustainability? because, there's always balance between how well you can do a job, just understanding a brief, and understanding a brief, but, you're kind of more passionate about it, but maybe your deliverable is not so great. So how do you kind of balance that out, and what do you look for in a freelancer when you employ them?
That's a very good question. Thank you. I would say that honestly, we've had a number of interviews, even for people interviewing to work with us at Future by Design, and also with freelancers or companies who wanted to work with us. And we had situations where someone was extremely technically gifted or well versed, but really did not have any particular passion, not really passion, but really did not care about whether their work will have a positive impact. And that's what we care about. It's not that we are asking people to be vegan and, adhere to everything they might hear that sustainable living is, etc. But just to have a genuine belief that what they are working on will have a positive impact socially and environmentally. That means a lot to us. And I think when we carefully select someone who's joining Future by Design as well, we see that we really love to work with the team who wakes up in the morning and is just happy that what they're working on will have an impact and positive one. And we are seeing actually this change in a number of the partners, agencies that we're working with, and some seasoned professionals who are like in their 40s and 50s and say, well, throughout my career, I've worked on so many different projects as a freelancer, owning a company, like as a digital nomad, etc. And of course, you can't always choose which projects you're working on. But even they said, like, now when we worked on so many of the projects that had a positive impact, I feel that it's actually really nice to spend my time working on something that I know will contribute to something that makes a difference. And it's just, for us, it's just like that signaling, because again, we even had interviews where people just really did not care, and we just felt, well, that doesn't align with our values. So, and when it comes to, as you said, like sometimes people might not understand the creative brief in full, and that's perfectly fine, because from our side, we're always in the creative lead. And when we work with freelancers or with agencies, we make sure that there is quite a big in-depth research, and we always provide additional information to see how that fits the overall picture. And so until now, we really had no issues on that front.
Yeah. When you're speaking about sustainability, sorry, I'm just now jumping a little bit all over the show. Obviously, sustainability, people immediately think kind of climate change and environmental, but it's all got to do with social justice and that sort of thing as well. Because I think there's 14 UN Sustainability Development Goals.
Actually, there are a lot of
17,
them.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, it's quite wide, quite a wide scope, isn't it?
Exactly. I think before Sustainable Development Goals, we had Millennium Development Goals, and those were easier. They were fewer. They were more direct. And right now, with 17 development goals, there are like 169 targets as well. So it's even complicated for the governments to report on and to show the progress in many of these fields. But from our side, as I said, like we work on so many different issues that are not, or challenges that are not just linked to climate action. That is just one of them. So we're also working on addressing poverty, on addressing gender equality, on addressing education, justice, whether it's social justice or working with the government to actually focus on the justice system. So we work a lot on public health as well. During my time with the UN, I actually worked with different UN agencies and financing institutions to introduce a more sustainable model to the public health systems worldwide and the way we're even producing health commodities, etc. So that was quite a challenging big take on its own. So with that knowledge as well, we work with organizations, big health organizations, to again communicate on health, and that even spans in so many different topics, where we talk about gender-based violence, we talk about maternal and newborn health, adolescents health, we talk about antimicrobial resistance, we talk about premature born babies. And so we focus quite on a variety of topics, but I think it makes it fun for our team as well, because every single project is just completely different on its own. And when we do the research and we dive into it, we really approach each of the project like individually, and we have a tailor-made approach. And so I just think the team enjoys it a lot as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And with the need and the scope being so broad, I mean, your agency was born out of that need. Would you say similarly for people in a freelance profession, is sustainability something that there's still scope to niche into and for people to specialize in those topics? Or do you feel like maybe the market's already oversaturated with freelancers with that kind of specialization?
Oh, not at all. I think it's a great market and a really big one for freelancers to come in. Again, I really feel that sustainability more and more will just become the way of thinking and living and working, and not just, the end goal of kind of brands or organizations talking about it. So for me, again, if it's a way of thinking, it would be more just if someone wants to be authentic and inclusive and mindful of the sensitivities of how their either communications or storytelling or design or animation kind of reflects the topic that they're covering. So if you would ask me, I really feel that it's a go-to market, and that more and more agencies and brands and companies will be looking for someone who has this understanding. And I think that's also the reason why we've been so successful until now in building our relationships with clients and getting new contracts and licenses, etc., simply because they feel confident and comfortable to let us speak about their topics and about their works and their projects, because they understand that the narrative and language we'll be using, whether the actual language or visually, would make sense, and will be mindful of the complexity of the topic that they're focusing on. So I would just say it's the way of thinking mostly that one needs to apply.
So what would you say to someone, let's say a freelance designer who, perhaps thinks that they have a passion for sort of future-proofing and making sure that they're making an impact, but they don't really have they have the skills, but they don't really have too much knowledge and experience behind that. How do people go about taking that passion and turning it into something that's needed and marketable?
I would say that organizations who are like deep dive into the sustainable development really care about a portfolio as well. And I do understand how difficult it is to show. And something that is really wonderful is that the UN actually has a platform for volunteering opportunities where not only the UN agencies, but also organizations such as the Nathan Ibex Foundation sometimes post opportunities where you can work on small projects for them. And I think that's a good testing ground, like on a pro bono basis, like if one could afford to just, work on the side and help someone have a positive impact, it might be a learning curve as well in terms of how they feel about that and whether it works for them, the whole topic of sustainable development. And again, it gives them also a really nice reference to showcase to some other projects that would be paying for this particular service. So I would say if I were a designer who is coming into this market and want to build a little bit of a portfolio, that could be a nice low-hanging fruit for them to look into.
That's a great idea.
Now, let's speak about how your organization actually works with freelancers. You've obviously got a core team that is fully employed by your agency, and you kind of bring freelancers on as and when you need them on an ad hoc basis. Obviously, each freelancer has their own little unique personality. We're talking about long-term relationships versus short-term project-based relationships. How does your core team work with freelancers to get the best possible outcomes?
I would say it depends on the project, but most of the time, because all of the projects we're basically leading on is quite complex from our side and from the side of the client. And most of the time from the client side, there are a number of people involved. So what we do, we usually have one focal point. From our side, we have one focal point as product manager, and from their side as well, like one person who makes sure that nothing falls through the cracks in terms of the communication, and just makes it much easier for us to be very efficient in our work. So when we have some freelancers who collaborate with us, they're mostly engaging with the creative team directly, or with the communication side of our team, or directly with the project manager from our side. So we ensure that we're really managing well our own resources. We can provide them feedback, again, show how their particular piece of the puzzle kind of fits the overall puzzle we're working on. So we don't have direct communication between the client and any potential like freelancer or an agency who is collaborating with us. It mostly goes through one focal point who is a project manager assigned to work on that project on behalf of Future by Design. But we're always on the lookout for great talent. Really, it can come from anywhere. Sometimes we're on social media, we see someone inspiring, we drop them a message and say like, hey, we really like what you're doing. Can we have a call? Quite recently, through one of the clubs where we're participating in from the creative side, we've seen someone who's a video producer and who was very passionate about sustainability, but now is focusing on portraits of change makers and is going from maybe a documentary series kind of production more towards portraits and videography of individuals. And human-centered component is so important to us at Future by Design. So we just felt like, hey, let's jump on the call. We don't have anything at the moment, but it would be so lovely to meet face-to-face. And then as soon as opportunity comes up, like we can just follow up and see if you're available and how would that fit the overall project. So we do that quite often. And again, we try to be different in each of the projects we're working on. So for the latest global conference on climate change that took place in Baku, Azerbaijan, we worked together with Green Climate Fund, who wanted to make their pavilion more immersive. And so we had different creative directions, but for one of them, which was the most immersive, we actually researched a lot and looked into the artist who could actually create and deliver art installation that would be interactive. Like in the pavilion, you could sit inside these beehives that had featured different materials, etc. So we're always exploring. And we're always open to meet anyone. So again, we're always on the lookout, and it's actually fun because Julia, our communications lead, who we met during one of the events in Istanbul. I was very pregnant at that time. It was my last engagement before the baby comes. And he was focusing on visual storytelling. Julia ended up coming to the audience to support another panelist. And then she read about Future by Design. She said, oh, I actually like what these guys are doing. And we spoke after the event, and then I also realized, well, this is the person we'd love to have on board as our communications lead. So yeah, so it works like that. We're always having an open mind and always love to hear from people, see what they're working on, what they're passionate about. And then if there's an opportunity, we just like to bring them on board.
That's amazing. Thing is, we're speaking about, I call it stalking on LinkedIn. I stalk a lot of people. You clearly stalk a lot of people too, because if you're reaching out to them, how do you actually set those kind of relationships up? Obviously, from your end, you're just keeping an eye on the ground, seeing what's going on online, seeing what people, what work people are doing that you kind of connect with. How would it work the other way around? How would freelancers kind of approach you in a non-aggressive, non-stalkery kind of way to say, listen, I'm super interested. I'd love to work on a project. Here I am. This is what I can do. As the cliche goes, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take because, you need to obviously have that kind of sales vibe and be approaching people to try and secure work. But there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. So how does your agency enjoy being approached by freelancers looking for work?
Well, I would say that I always like the human connection. So I would very much prefer that someone sends just a genuine message on LinkedIn and literally say this, we like what you're doing and this is what I'm focusing on. Or as an agency we are focusing on, I'll be happy to meet and just explore if we can work together. I think I would prefer that much more than cold emails that are obviously chains and sent just for the sake of sending them and increasing sales, etc. And is just not trying to make a genuine connection. So I would say if anyone is really interested in just dropping a message, that would work really, really well from our side. But again, we have different cases. We sometimes even have someone who writes a really nice message or an email and shares portfolio and sends it to our general address, hello@futurebydesign.studio. Or if someone wants to reach out to anyone, including myself, firstly, I'll be super happy to read their message on LinkedIn.
So Now, let's looking ahead. How do you see the field of sustainability communication evolving, and what role does Future by Design hope to play in shaping it?
Well, as I mentioned, I really believe that while the times are challenging, there is no other way to think and to work but in this manner of more sustainable development. And we're really doubling down this year. And as part of that effort, we're launching an initiative called Creative Women Leading Change. And that's something really close to my heart. Because we intend to do a lot of different initiatives as part of this year. One of them is to champion women leaders in different industries, and showing how they're through creative leadership and work they have a positive social or environmental impact. And we hope to encourage or provide aspiration to the young professionals, storytellers, journalists, designers, and animators that there is a way that their work can contribute to very meaningful projects or brands and organizations. And something else that we want to do at the same time is also organize specific workshops in person. We're hoping the first one to be by the end of April in Paris, and then we're looking in different cities globally as well, and perhaps maybe even digitally, where we would have different, again, young professionals interested in strategic communications and design who might be exploring the area of sustainability. And we would basically share our methods of work and how do we approach developing narratives for different campaigns, how do we write, how do we think, how do we research, and how do we create visually our own campaigns. So that's something that I'm hoping that through our own work and through these small events where we either profile women leaders that will inspire the next generation, or we provide like some kind of hands-on workshops and trainings, might incentivize someone to go down this path and basically work with us or work with others in the future more on sustainability related projects.
Oh wow, okay. And what opportunities might this create for freelancers? Because you've mentioned a lot of the stuff that you're doing is kind of in person. Obviously, in person stuff, a lot of the stuff is done behind the scenes, so it is done digitally. But in person, you obviously need to be located in specific areas of the world if you're going to be involved in person, face-to-face events. So what kind of opportunities can freelancers keep their eye out for?
Honestly, we work globally with everyone. Our clients are in all of the countries in the world, and it really goes from South Korea to United States across the entire world. And all of our collaborators who are like freelancers or agencies, they're also based everywhere from Australia to the United States again. So it really does not change for us. We have team members even who work at Future by Design who work remotely. So for us, it doesn't change. We live in a digital era. So for us, if someone is based in South Africa, like Julia is, in between countries, etc., for us, it really does not make a difference. And as long as we're connected and we're having like check-in points, etc. So if anyone is a freelancer based anywhere in the world and would simply just like to explore this work, we'll be happy to hear from them. And I think that it really does not. I don't see it as a barrier or a challenge if they like to work with someone else wherever they're based. This
More
particular
sustainable
event
too.
exactly. And it's changed. I've seen that in 2019, before the pandemic started, we used to have what I really loved, kickoff meetings with clients in person. And I just really loved setting that foundation together with them in person. You get to know face to face how one is thinking, what is the vision for the overall project, in which direction we want to go. So that was really beautiful. And I still find that human connection to be priceless. But then again, with the pandemic, everyone realized that there's still, if not all things, could be done digitally for our field of work. And so right now, even those kickoff meetings, they take place digitally online. So I believe that it will simply continue in that way. The reason why we want to organize some of these events in person is also because at the end of April in Paris, in Grand Palais, there will be one of the largest conferences focused on climate solutions. And we're very privileged and happy to actually host a workshop on the opening day at 11 o'clock, where we will focus on the power of communications for circularity. And since we will be here and our team, then we felt like, why wouldn't we then just organizing one of the venues a training for someone who might be interested, is finishing their studies or started working as a young professional. And I met, again, at the Clean Creatives meetup in Paris, quite a few of them. And we might just share what we know and how we work, and just use that opportunity. So that's the only reason why we thought it would be a nice venue to engage in person again with some people.
Amazing. Shay, do you have any kind of final questions from your end?
Just if you were to give freelancers one piece of advice who want to get into this kind of niche, what would that be?
If it really makes you happy, just go for it.
Awesome.
Great advice. Mirjana, where can people find you online? We will obviously post all the links in the show notes for people. But just while we're busy chatting, where can people find you online?
LinkedIn. I would say that I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and I really like it as a platform where we can meet so many like-minded individuals. So I would say that, honestly, I read my LinkedIn messages follow every day quite frequently. So if they'd like to reach out, more than happy.
Perfect. Yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of the interview. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit and chat with us. You said at the beginning that for you it feels like speaking to two celebrities. For me, at least, I can't speak for Shay, but I'm sure she feels the same, that we feel like two little nerds sitting in South Africa speaking to people from around the world. So
doing cool stuff.
The pleasure really, yeah, it's really is our we're so lucky to have you on the show, and thank you so much for taking the time. It's been super interesting, and to all the viewers and the listeners, don't forget to subscribe while you're here, and we will see you in the next episode.